Good morning to you. I'm inside the Beltway where everything is in a shambles. Train wreck day yesterday. Speaker Mike Johnson, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, and Mitch McConnell and their teams negotiated a 1,500-page continuing resolution because the government runs out of money tomorrow night. And this thing was released, and the instant and overwhelming reaction was to vomit it back. I think it's dead. Now, I've often thought things were dead in D.C. that aren't dead. They're zombie and they come back out of the grave, but I think this is pretty dead. And because they put in a congressional pay raise. There are very few things that people understand. They understand congressional pay raises. They cannot be hidden from people. They know what you are making. They know that you tried to give yourself a 15 or a 20% pay hike, and they're not going for it. Because you didn't tell anyone you were going to do it. And if you're going to do a pay raise, you have to hang a lantern on the problem, and you have to tell people 6 months in advance, at the end of the year, we're going to raise the pay. At the end of the year, we're going to do this. At the end of the year, we're going to do that. And you have to prepare people, and no surprises. You can't surprise people because X is X. Everything is instantly known by everyone. Now, here is the underlying problem. Nobody trusts nobody about nothing. And that goes for conservatives and liberals and people in the middle. Nobody trusts nobody about nothing. Now, you can gain trust. I have a pretty good high Q. Not IQ, high Q. Q is a rating in the industry for believability, trustworthiness, general reliability, and I have a high Q. My guess is that the individual with the highest Q, who's on TV every day, Q rating, is Brett Baer. I think Brett is without question the most trusted news figure in America. So, and I'm Brett adjacent, so I'm pretty trusted. And there are some lefties who are lefty adjacent on the other side of Brett that you might trust. I'm not going to name anyone because you'll all be mad at me. But there are some lefties that you kind of trust that they're telling you the truth. And I tell you what the political world hadn't figured out yet is that Trump is in charge. And you really got to get Trump's buy-in and Trump's lieutenants' buy-in or their willingness to wait for the president-elect. He's in charge for probably 6 months. Then it will shatter. No coalition stays together for longer than 6 months. So you saw Trump on Monday or Tuesday with the press conference, and he was fabulous and in command. And nobody at the back of the room, because the media is dummies, they didn't ask him, do you want one bill or two bill on the reconciliation, and do you want anything else in the CR except the CR and the debt limit? But, I can't be everywhere. I can't talk to him every day. I can't have him on the program every day. It's pretty easy. They needed to get guidance from him that was explicit and on point, and it wasn't gotten, and therefore, Team Speaker Johnson's a good team of people, smart people. They're kind of feeling in the dark, and they're trying to get through a maze, and there are a bunch of people who need things like the submarine money we needed and the Farm Bill money we needed, and Democrats wanted A, B, and C, and they didn't want D, E, and F, and they negotiated, and they lost sight of the fact that nobody believes anybody in D.C. about anything. Now, how do you build trust? If I were Speaker Johnson today, literally, if I were him, I would call up Josh Holmes or one of the fellows at Ruthless Podcast and say, guys, I want you to hold an emergency podcast. I'm going to come over and tell you where we are because serious conservatives listen to Ruthless. Then I would call up the Commentary Podcast and say, guys, you never have guests other than Noah Rothman, but I'd like to be on your podcast. You would do the same with the editors. You would do the same with Mary Catherine Ham and Vic Mattis on Getting Hammered. You would call up Megyn Kelly. And you would go, I don't think he'd call me back. Dan Senor is national security and Israel affairs. But you might call me. You might call Dwayne for Dwayne's World. You would be on my radio show and you would do Highly Concentrated Hugh. And you would be very open about what's going on. Okay, here's what happened. We thought we had to do A, B, and C, and the Democrats wanted D, E, and F, and so we put A, B, and C, and D, E, and F together, and nobody likes it, everybody hates it, let's all just eat glue. And we made a mistake. We didn't get the Mar-a-Lago chop. and you need the Mar-a-Lago chop. The chop, for the benefit of the Indians out there, is the stamp that you put on things, a chop. And you need to put the chop on there. And there's a way to communicate with the conservative base. I just named it. Talk radio plus a half dozen podcasts. That's all you need to do. And you might go on Brett Baer, talk to Brett for an hour. You might talk to Sean later in the night. And then you've covered the bases and the conservative movement knows what's going on. And this is the fault of the Democrats. And you say, look, I told them we can't do this, and we tried, and every time we wanted something that we need, like submarines, they wanted something that we don't need, like green energy something or other. I don't know what's in this bill. This bill is 1,500 pages. I'm not going to read it. It's not going to pass. So how to establish trust? I heard yesterday on the commentary pod, John Podhoretz began by asking people to please go and like and subscribe to the YouTube broadcast of the commentary pod. I agree. I think you should like and subscribe my podcast, Highly Concentrated Hugh. I think you should like and subscribe to Dwayne's podcast, Dwayne's World. I think you should like and subscribe to Ruthless podcast, to the commentary podcast, to the editors, to the McCarthy Report, to Getting Hammered, to Megyn Kelly, to Call Me Back, and if you like Cleveland sports, to Terry's Talking. I can't bring myself to listen to the Browns podcast right now. I do listen to the Wine and Gold Report with Chris Fedor and a cast of characters from the Cleveland Plain Dealer on the Cavs because they're 23-4, which is remarkable. But I listen to Terry's Talking because I trust Terry Pluto on Cleveland sports. I trust Terry, so I listen to Terry. And Terry's been doing it forever, and he tells you the truth. And if he doesn't know, he says, I doesn't know. I don't know. And that's where the world is going. Nobody trusts CNN. Nobody trusts NBC, ABC, CBS. Nobody trusts the Washington Post. Nobody trusts anybody in legacy media, the Democrats or the Republicans. Nobody trusts the media. So in a crisis of trust, you have to go to where people are trusted and talk to their audiences so that you cumulatively impact the decision makers. And you've got to get the president to do more. President-elect Trump is the guy who can drive this deal. And I got to say to the press corps at Mar-a-Lago, he was there for an hour, and whoever the ninny was that asked him about January 6th and pardons, you don't know much about government. I really do. I just think if we had a semi-skilled group of people who aren't looking for a viral moment, and they really... Steve Holland is the best reporter in town you've never heard of. Steve Holland and with Reuters. I traveled the world with Steve Holland, with John Bolton. We went to Turkey and Israel together. And I learned so much from Steve Holland. And I see him occasionally because he lives pretty close to where I live. And I see him and I wave at him. And I thought to myself, that guy's a pro. He's a real pro. I try to be a professional. I do that without a producer, which is kind of remarkable. But I try and be professional and just tell you the news. But on this 1,500-page bill, it was very unprofessional because we didn't know there was a pay raise in it. And there it is. There's a picture if you're watching on the Salem News Channel. You can trust the Salem News Channel. You can trust Mike Gallagher. You can trust Seb Gorka. You can trust Charlie Kirk. You can trust Larry Elder. You can trust Dennis Prager when he comes back and our guest. You can always trust everybody. I don't know if you can trust Dwayne because he won't do the after show for the Tribbles. But I will say, if you're Speaker Johnson and you got to get some mojo back, it's pretty easy. Call up Comfortably Smug, call up Ruthless Podcast, any of the fellows, call up Rich Lowry and say, I want to come on National View on the editors. Call up Andy McCarthy and say, can I do Rich Lowry and Andy McCarthy and we'll talk about the bill. Call up Mary Catherine Ham and Vic Mattis to Getting Hammered. Call up Megyn Kelly. You know how Pete Hegseth is going to win being defense secretary? He went on Megyn Kelly's show. And Megyn Kelly's got this vast reach because people trust Megyn Kelly. Why do they trust her? Because NBC fired her. They trust her for the same reason. I mean, we tried to attach ourselves to legacy media and we got vomited out. Megyn in a big way, I in a small way. Because they're not interested in serious people on the right. But Mike Johnson, the Speaker Johnson, needs to go and make his case.